The doors to this abandoned high school are opening for the first time in 20 years. So we can finally get a glimpse of what remains inside.
So look at the neat tile. Look at this. This is true tile. Hi, I'm Kim Evans. And a little over 10 years ago, I formed a nonprofit in order to try and save this beautiful building that had been a school of mine here in town.
And as we're exploring this school, its history, and its future potential,
Oh, look. There's the original ceiling before they dropped it.
our goal is to help showcase why this abandoned school deserves a second chance.
I know this building can be something very special in this community. It really kind of sits in the heart of Chandler. The school office was over here. You know, just to come in here and be in this space, and it brings back so many memories for me, but it also allows me the opportunity to kind of sit and be quiet and go, wow, I know we could do something here.
Kim graduated in 1975, and ever since she bought it, her mission's been simple: save this building from further neglect or worse, demolition.
There's so much that this building has to offer to our community.
By finding the right partner or buyer, someone who believes in it just as much as she does.
If I have a really good group of friends and a really good group, we can do this. And it may take a few years.
And I know for a fact that this can be done, because in all the abandoned places that I've ever explored, I have seen so many of them saved and restored into something beautiful and something that genuinely benefits the communities around them.
A lot of communities would be better off if they had a school like this that brought people together with the memories we got.
But sadly, I have seen just as many of them destroyed because either someone local purchased it and didn't have the money or experience to take on the next steps, or something that I've seen way too often: demolition by neglect.
I really believe it's repairable.
Despite the holes and leaks, this building's historic features give it real value and charm, starting with mine and Kim's favorite, the one-of-a-kind stone facade. And what makes it even more special is how it was built, which was a part of the WPA project, one of the most remarkable chapters in American history. And that's why it's already listed on the National Register of Historic Places, which means it qualifies for the historic tax credits. But most importantly, the community here is behind it and ready to support whoever steps in to save it. But the main thing that gives me hope is the fact that this is not Kim's first time doing this.
This was absolutely pitiful.
She was a huge driving force in the restoration of the Chandler Armory building,
And that's how the floor was put in, and then another parquet floor was put on top of it.
which is now one of Chandler's biggest attractions, and she's ready to do it again here.
The beautiful building, they don't make them like this anymore.
But one of the biggest problems that Kim is facing right now is time. The longer that this building sits empty, the more damage that Mother Nature will do. And at some point, the city could step in and force their hand.
God, what do you want me to do with this building? I've lost sleep over it. I've struggled with it. What if the city or the courts or somebody said, Kim, you gotta tear that building down?
The Chandler Memorial High School officially closed its doors as an educational building in 1994, but was still used by the district for various things until 2007.
Shouldn't you remember where your locker is?
No, it's been how many years? 30 years?
Wait a minute.
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh.
We're gonna stop doing that.
And yearbooks, school records, trophies, and so much more have been sitting inside ever since.
Hey, do y'all remember that scene from National Treasure when they walk into the treasure room?
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh, that's exactly what it feels like.
Dun, dun,
You weren't kidding.
While exploring inside, one of the very first things we were looking for were areas of severe damage.
I just don't know how bad the floor is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can go
Oh,
around.
Lord, there's a hole.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you see the hole right in front of you, right?
Thankfully, most of the floors were intact, but there were a few holes in the hallways and classrooms. But in the auditorium, there were quite a few areas of dilapidation, especially the roof in the back, which was completely gone.
The very first thing that you would have to do is get a good roof on it.
Most of the damage we came across is only a drop in the bucket when you compare it to several other historic restoration projects.
The roof would have to come down anyway to restore it. Nature's kind of doing that for us. If you tear it down, that's actually $100,000 or more. Okay, with $100,000, maybe we could actually find a way to put a roof on it.
But restoration isn't really the question. The real questions are what this building could become, how it would benefit Chandler, where the funding comes from, and how much longer neighbors have to watch it decay. And trust me, we're gonna answer all these questions.
Kim, Kim. I wouldn't fall far.
But one thing that concerned me was that Chandler has already lost a significant amount of its historic buildings, including most recently, the very famous and well-known St. Cloud Hotel.
The St. Cloud Hotel has been here in Chandler since the 1900s. It's a historical landmark along Route 66, but the city will be demolishing it.
Which is why one of Kim's biggest fears is that this building could be next.
God, what am I supposed to be doing with this big old building? That's my responsibility now. I mean, I make sure that the grounds are kept up. I make sure that the building's secure so nobody can get in it, and I pay a liability insurance, which I'm happy to pay for, but now I just need a team.
A team which is already starting to build because Kim was able to convince her daughter Terra to join her coalition, who likely agreed because of her own previous history with the building.
We graduated in 2001, and in 5th grade, we were the last class that entered Memorial, and the next year they shut it down. It was sad. It was a neat building, so it was just kind of a shock.
The more I talked with Kim, the more I realized how difficult it really is just to own an abandoned high school, and I really want her to succeed here. But if you're anything like me, you're probably wondering why and how she bought this in the first place. So I decided to find out how all of this unfolded.
How did I come to get this building?
Yeah.
Oh, silly me. I made a comment I probably shouldn't have made. I know this is way before your time. I found the floppy disk, the hard one. And then I found the bigger floppy disk. Then I found one that I didn't even remember. It was like this big. What? It was huge.
Here's one of your big floppy disks.
Oh, I know. I love it. It all started when the school district stopped using it. Whenever they moved all the classrooms out of it, it became an administrative building, then an alternative school, then storage, and then it was just left to deteriorate. Like it sat there for so long.
For many people, driving past this place and seeing it empty became routine. And while everyone in town was for the idea that something should happen to that building, the longer and longer nothing happened, the harder those conversations were to have. But as it turns out, Chandler has an amazing school pride, and right down the street from the old Memorial School was the Chandler Alumni Association building, along with the museum right inside, which is where I met two of the major players, Marfrida and Michael.
We wouldn't have done this if we didn't enjoy doing it. And we know we're kind of a yes couple here in Chandler. Whatever they need, Interpretive Center, if they need something, well then when you get one, you get the other.
And when I was talking with Michael, I learned that he's on the school board, and he was able to provide some insight into the school district's decisions.
We were looking for a way to take that building off of our hands because of the cost of upkeep, insurance, the whole 9 yards. And we were not ever going to be able to afford to be able to do anything with that building. But we sold that to Kim. Because if we weren't going to be able to do anything with it, then it was going to revert back to the city, and the city was going to have to spend money to either, take it down or do something with it.
And I was so glad to hear this because it tells me that even they didn't want to see it get demolished.
We even had a lot of other entities that wanted that building, but once they came in and really kind of looked at it, they said we're going to demolish it, but we wanted to wait for something better to come along. That's why we were able to give it to Kim. I would love to see something happen to that building.
But that still didn't exactly answer my question on why Kim bought it in the first place. As far as anyone was aware, there were no future plans. But in 2018, a few local photographers found their way inside and posted some of their photos to Facebook. And it re-sparked a whole lot of conversation.
The comments were, somebody should do something about that. Why is somebody not taking that building and doing something with it? And I chimed in and said, it takes dedication. It takes someone that can see the bigger picture. And a few people said, yes, we're with you and let's do this.
John Guest was one of those photographers who had a chance to see it early on.
When I first came in, that was 2014, 2015, and it was still in really good shape. It's sad, it really is. I wish I could have I've documented it more too when I was younger. I remember when it was still pretty clean up here too.
Yeah, this is a cool TV right there.
Yeah.
And it was because of those posts and comments that finally influenced Kim to put in a proposal.
So we approached the school and we were able to obtain the building.
They officially named their nonprofit Friends of Memorial School. And now it was just a matter of solving one of the biggest issues they're facing.
I think money is the biggest issue.
Yeah.
That's the biggest hurdle.
It was clear that this community truly cares about this building, but it wasn't until I started digging into the history when I found out this wasn't the first time that Chandler has been trying to raise funds around this school. Chandler opened for settlement during the land run at noon on September 28, 1891. Chandler was purposely located at the geographic center of the county and near a water supply called Indian Spring, which is now a city park. The post office was established the same year, which the city named after the Assistant Secretary of the Interior, George Chandler.
It was a real booming town, even back in the 1890s. We had several cotton gins, and in the evenings, after they did all their business through town, they would go down to the park and they would have picnics and just a big celebration on every Saturday evening.
However, in 1897, a massive tornado struck the town.
When the sun rose again, the town lay in smoldering ruins. With as many as 23 lives lost and countless injured, the town of Chandler had been wiped off the face of the earth.
But by the next year, sturdier brick and stone buildings were constructed, including the second high school building, which was completed in 1919. As the district grew, it kept struggling to find adequate space for its students. And with the help from the firm Coberling and Fleming, the Chandler School Board president accepted plans for a new building. And it came to life through Franklin Roosevelt's Works Progress Administration, or the WPA. This New Deal program was built to pull the country out of the Great Depression. The Chandler locals even today are aware of this program, including former student Trevor.
There's a lot of hands and a lot of families whose dads and uncles, brothers all pitched in to get this built.
The idea was simple. Instead of handing struggling families a relief check, the government handed them a job. And across the country, those turned into roads, bridges, parks, and thousands of new schools just like this, which were built by communities like Skip's family.
My dad in the 30s worked on this and the Armory. So this gave people work back in the 30s when things were pretty rough.
But this WPA didn't fit the whole bill. The town had to cover a share of the cost themselves, and that catch would follow Chandler for years. The exact number of WPA projects in Chandler is hard to pin down, but several of the town's schools, including obviously the Chandler High School itself, were built through this program. But Chandler's biggest WPA claim to fame is the old National Guard Armory, which, as a side note, was also built from hand-quarried native sandstone in the 1930s. It has since been restored into the Route 66 Interpretive Center, a stop that draws visitors from all across the country every year. But the high school project was way more complicated than any of the others, because on paper, the cost ran around $80,000. The government would put up $50,213, and the rest would come from local bonds and materials. The old building was taken apart with care, with every salvageable piece set aside, which would add another $8,200 to the tab. In the beginning, a crew of about 100 workers kept the whole thing coming along. With native rock being the signature of so many WPA buildings, here it all came straight from the posh Peachtree farm.
The sandstone for that building and the sandstone for the Armory both came out of the same quarry, which is literally like across the street.
They carved those stones out by hand with not a lot of power tools and all that we would have today.
But it seemed like every time one problem got solved, another was already waiting in line. As the United States stepped into World War II, skilled labor grew scarce, materials dried up, and the WPA money trickled in slower than ever, turning the project into one long cycle of starting and stopping. Finally, in the fall of 1942, the building was just finished enough to open its doors. Students officially began filling the halls on September 7th, 1942, even though the work hadn't been finished yet. The auditorium, the band rooms, and a handful of classrooms still sat unfinished, but eventually the crew picked back up in late November, just long enough to wrap up the auditorium. The band rooms, though, kept waiting. And right through December, students and the WPA workers were still in there swinging their hammers. When the building was finally completed in 1943, it was truly something that the community could be proud of.
It's also one of the only WPA buildings that has just really unique architecture. Growing up in Chandler, to me, it was uplifting.
The alumni donated books to fill out the library. The students helped out by taking on the tall order of raising money for a lifeboat parachute and a Jeep to send towards the war effort. And the school band finally got to use their newly constructed band room. Even the future Farms of America boys got their hands dirty, planting trees to dress up the grounds.
To see the state of the building and the deterioration is really heartbreaking. You know, it's like an old friend that we've neglected.
In 2018, after Kim and her newly formed nonprofit officially took ownership of the building, she wasted no time in investing in the building's viability by bringing in an engineer who provided a glimmer of hope.
He said it's very, very doable to save this building. In the beginning, there was just lots of, enthusiasm, and things kind of started to wane. And then COVID hit. Everybody was just trying to navigate the pandemic, and didn't really have an interest in restoring an old building anymore.
And for the last 6 years, the condition of the school continued to worsen.
It's definitely deteriorated a lot more with the roof being gone.
And by the time that the pandemic had normalized, the enthusiasm for the building's restoration was still present. However, the motivation seemed to come to a stop.
The bones are good. It's all brick. It's really solid sandstone, and I don't think it's too far gone. Not whatsoever.
The main argument was that nobody of the younger generation or outside of Chandler had any interest. But in February of 2026, Kim received 2 phone calls that changed everything.
I got a phone call, a message, my secretary, that said, this lady wants to talk to you about the old school building. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. And then you called and left a message the same exact day. And I went, okay, this is kind of strange.
And I called her because I was just passing through Chandler and really inspired by the school's architecture, and I simply just wanted a tour of the inside. But the other phone call was from 2 students out of UCO, Tina and Becky, and we all met with Kim on a random Sunday to talk about the possibilities of the project, and of course, hopefully to see the inside.
Guys, if you want to go up there, I have a key.
Will we go up there?
Let's go. Wait a minute. Let me ask the owner.
I'm so glad I caught that on camera. But after wandering the whole school, getting to know Kim and hearing what Tina and Becky were trying to do, I got sucked in and I just couldn't help myself.
What's painted on the wall?
A lion.
Oh, you weren't lying.
The reason Tina and Becky contacted Kim was because of their final project for their municipal management class with Dr. Wood at UCO. The project is called MAD, or Making a Difference Assignment, which pairs students up as consultants with real city clients.
Almost hear the voices from the past of people coming in the doors. You can feel it. You can feel those present.
So we had took a survey, and there was a list of all the projects, and Becky and I so happened to choose as our number 1.
I liked that it was a historical building, but especially as we found out more of the history of it, it became even more a personal want.
Honestly, this project seemed the most interesting out of all the other ones.
Later on, the 2 of them were connected with the Chandler city manager to develop a community-supported plan for what to do with the property. Even though this is a student project, this could actually be the answer to figuring out how to make this project finally work. So what Tina and Becky are doing here, it's very real.
We secure the roof first.
That makes a whole difference.
That saves the building.
Well, and then maybe that too would kind of revitalize some of the community's interest.
And now they had all semester long to research, investigate, and meet with everyone involved. Their goal was to give an official recommendation on whether or not this building actually is viable for restoration, or if it should be demolished.
We were so excited when we left here the first time. It was like, could you imagine? Even if it's 5, 6, 7 years from now, and be like, we got to be a part of that.
But something that they didn't realize until they got started is that the city's stance as of right now was leaning towards demolition.
Our first meeting with the city manager and Natalie, city manager was like telling us like what we can do with this building. And one thing he threw out was demolition. And when he mentioned that, I was like, oh, he wants this building destroyed, doesn't he? When we were informed what the city manager would thought, we kind of lowered morale, it kind of diverted our project.
Quite honestly, just lit a fire under me too, to be like, oh no, sir, we'll let me show you what we can do.
Despite the city's want for possible demolition, they didn't let that distract them from their initial goal, to see what's best for the community.
We have to see both sides. We have to be prepared for either.
Yeah.
But that feasibility study is absolutely a necessity to get this started.
Their talk about demolition had me a little concerned though, so I decided to reach out to the city myself and hear firsthand what they were thinking. Jason, the city manager, wasn't available. However, his assistant Natalie was, and I had a great conversation with her.
We would give them feedback and to show like, oh, have you considered this, and just trying to point them in the right direction. But overall, we were really impressed with with the ideas that the students came up with.
As of right now, what is the official stance from the city on the old high school? Because I heard restoration and demolition tossed around a few times.
Well, it's not our building; we don't own it anymore, so it's just kind of there right now.
Okay.
Jason can probably tell you more about
Yeah.
all that stuff.
So you said the city does not own it. Kim owns the building. Is that right? Kim and her LLC?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Did y'all work with Kim to work with UCO, or like how did that work?
I see what you're getting from, because it's not a city.
I'm just curious. I don't know how it works. I was just curious.
Yes. We just kind of came up with that project, and we had told the students Kim is the person that's kind of, in charge.
I used to work with a company that did estate sales. And one time we had a client who had bought old church pews and old desks.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there could be something like once it's cleaned out, if, hey, we're going to have an auction. You want, come get a piece of history.
The details on the side of the building.
Because they didn't have to spend that time carving those letters and literally just put like a brick and mortar building there, or limestone mortar building there. Like, there's your school.
No, they put incredible care and thought into this and made it something special, unique.
They were so excited about this project that they went way above and beyond the class requirements, going as far as giving Kim advice and working with her closely to get a plan in place.
We knew it was the Chandler Memorial High School committee that was the charity organization. And the website that we found gave a point-by-point list of what they wanted to do and what they felt like would be good for the community.
The website. It was their official website. I'm just gonna say it is awful. I'm sorry. It feels like it was their free trial with whatever service they're using. No, the social media links. They don't even link to any social media. They link to I think Squarespace. Yeah, because it's terrible.
And we looked at grants and how they can be stacked and how they can be used. And there's ones that this is once in a lifetime. There are some that these are once a year. There are some that are matching, where yes, we'll give you X amount of dollars, but your corporation or entity has to match that money.
The first step, what Kim and everyone needs, is a plan. What will we do with this building?
And they have a really good point. Why even begin to talk about how to restore a building when you don't even know what Chandler's in need of? Is there a housing shortage? A need for more office spaces? Kim and the Friends of Chandler Memorial School need a business plan, and that's why Tina and Becky sat down with many former students and current Chandler residents back at the Alumni Museum to find out firsthand all the possibilities of what the school could be repurposed as.
What are you guys going to end up doing with this? I should have asked that to begin with.
We're just proposing recommendations on what to do with the building. Yeah, so ultimately this is a school project for us, but Becky and I have kind of, gotten a little too close to it.
And it turned out to be an amazing day, because not only did we get to hear firsthand from the alumni their stories, but we got to hear exactly what would be the best for the city.
I came to Chandler Public Schools from a rural school, and it was a single room school.
So when I came to Chandler, I was really anxious about switching classes, moving from one room to another.
Same experience, exactly. Same school. Came in and terrified. And I look at your sitting in your class across the hall looking at me with this big grin. You don't know where you're going.
And so we were able to actually be there at the museum and interview a few people.
We had 7 people that came together that we were able to interview.
So not only was there high school kids there was first and second graders there. And because I lived on the east side of Manville Avenue, I was supposed to go to Hunter and I got routed wrong. So my first 2 days at school that was supposed to be at a country school ended up being at this huge school with tons of kids, and I was scared to death and I didn't have any siblings.
While sitting here listening to all of their stories, it reminded me of just how great their school pride is. And it turns out that Chandler High School is one of the best examples of community involvement that I've ever stumbled upon. In fact, they hold the title for the oldest and longest continuing alumni association in the state.
The picture of the lady back here, her son graduated from Chandler High School, and after he had graduated, she wanted to get some of his classmates together because he missed his classmates, and that's how she started the Chandler High School Alumni.
And while these hallways are full of memories for the locals,
I think there are pranks played in high school. Not mean pranks, but funny pranks. Like nobody got hurt or anything.
Or somebody throws spitballs at the teacher, Miss Gillen up there, and I always got blamed for it because I was the biggest guy. Yeah, imagine it.
And you never did anything.
I never did anything wrong.
I know.
So we were there to talk about the building and the different memories that this old building has. And we kind of came back to the different things that this building could actually house.
There is a lot of options. We would throw everything at the wall, nothing will stick. You had like that spaghetti analogy.
Absolutely.
Right?
Wish I had $10 million, maybe I'd fix it. Honestly, it's tough to see it. Although you're never going to find places built today like that.
It would have to take some education and showing people, whether it be through film, this is what this building could be.
this strong sense of community is a vital part of what makes Memorial School in need of getting the right people involved.
Not everybody has the internet. But even if you have the internet, not everybody wants to study from home. But it could also be a place for small businesses that need to have an office space.
So that was kind of a breakthrough in a sense.
Oh, we just opened up a whole nother door here. Okay. We're taking these places and turning them into test sites that come try our ideas out. Is this going to work? Is this something that would be put back into the community? Test labs, yes.
I think we're on something here.
Well, the multi-purpose building would allow maybe a revenue stream for the owner, and then some community education, media room, and then, like you said, maybe a coffee shop or whatever.
I had talked to a gentleman several years ago, and he was thinking about an incubator kind of situation, places where people could have small businesses, but where you could also have residential. Again, this building's got a lot of classrooms. It's got a lot of potential to be a makerspace for small businesses or startup businesses.
Y'all need to come down and experience Alumni.
If nothing else, come down about 10:30 and bus the parade. Get some candy thrown at you.
Hey guys, I appreciate you so much. I know this is a class project, but I still appreciate your effort. And Michael, I appreciate you, even all your little posts.
And it was after this meeting that gave me the most hope. The idea of a makerspace or residential use are two big contenders, and everyone in the meeting seemed to be excited about it.
What Becky was saying, we need a feasibility study, we need a structural assessment to figure out, is this even possible?
And what's even better is that this isn't Kim's first rodeo. She's already played a key role in saving Chandler's most visited and historic site. It took a whopping 13 years to restore the old Armory building, or now known as the Route 66 Interpretive Center. The Chandler Armory finished its construction in 1937 for a total cost of $50,000. Its iconic sandstone facade was hand-carved by workers who were paid only $1 a day.
Once they got all these rocks up here, then a group of men would come along and cut these rocks into 20 inches in width.
This was absolutely pitiful. All kinds of critters living in here.
I had sat on the committee for 13 years that restored the old Armory.
It wasn't something that any of us took lightly. It took a lot of work. It took a lot of dedication.
And this was the artillery unit. And because our building started falling apart, the National Guard moved out of this building and left this building vacant.
Restoring this building was a long process, but walking around here now, seeing what they've done with it, the displays, the artifacts, all of it, it's nothing short of incredible.
There's 2 videos per iPad, so you lay on the bed, look up at the screen, and play whichever video you want to watch.
They found such a great use for the building, especially sitting right here on Route 66, and now it serves as a great tribute to what the Mother Road has done for this country. But just like the school, not everyone believed in the vision at first.
You had a lot of negative naysayers that wanted the building torn down. It had been neglected for many, many years. And finally, when we went to the city and talked to Cindy into letting us, let us take that over. We'll be friends of the old Armory. We were called ORS, Friends of the Old Armory Restoration. We had some people on the committee that were just absolutely relentless when it came to looking for money. And we got a grant and we were able to put a roof on the building. It was 3 more years before we were able to obtain the ICT grant, which was $1 million grant.
The floor used to all be wood like this, but remember I told you our building was in really bad disrepair? It ruined all the floor except for this piece right here.
It just goes to show what can be done when the right people get involved. And right now, there's so much going on in Chandler that I don't see why the school can't be a part of that story. When I was talking with Natalie, she gave me a tour and showed me everything that the city is doing to try and grow this town, get some more people to move here, and improve the quality of life, including the new baseball park that sits right next to the Armory building.
We're gonna have a ribbon cutting. We're gonna have our guest speakers. So the mayor, Reese Martin, who's the president of the state Oklahoma Route 66 Association. And then we've invited the lieutenant governor.
From my perspective, there's no reason that the school can't be done. I mean, just look at the bones. But more importantly, look at how much the community truly cares about this place. Every year, they throw a huge parade that goes all the way down to Main Street. And a lot of the floats are prepared right in front of the school.
And it's usually a big, big event. I mean, everybody in Chandler seems like looks forward to it because it helps the community.
As for Tina and Becky, it seems like their final project was well received, and maybe all it takes is to show the city that momentum is building so that we can prove that demolition is not the answer. Do good on the project.
We got A's.
Okay.
Jason, city manager, he really liked our project. He liked the idea of the steer committee. Natalie, she also really liked the paper. I don't remember exactly what she said.
We were really impressed with with the ideas that the students came up with.
But overall, I'm excited to see what's next for Kim. I can see how committed she and her committee are to this project. And I can already tell that the momentum is starting to build again, because earlier this summer, former alumni Stephen Robinson and Jason Allen of Yates Roofing reached out and offered to do a free roof inspection, just to see how bad it really was. And as it turns out, it wasn't bad at all. In fact, we learned that the building was built with steel I-beams, and outside of a few key areas, the roof is actually in really good condition. So now the excitement is really building. And at this point, Kim is willing to partner up with somebody or even sell the building to someone with the best intentions. She's open to just about anything, as long as it means that the building can be restored and turned into something positive for the community.
There's just a lot of school pride. There's a lot of camaraderie. There's a lot of love of community and love of small town I've seen over and over and over. Pick anybody out.
Pick anyone out.
I like the Nike hoodie.
My dad went to school here. I went to school here. My husband went to school here. All of my kids graduated from Chandler. Shut the front door. That's my daughter.
No way.
No.
Right there.
Really?
Are you serious?
There you go. That's insane. Out of all the pictures that were in here.
It was like, what? I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to take this picture.
Do it.
I can't believe you found
You're
that.
stealing from your own building?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my oldest daughter, Erin. That was a big surprise, okay? That was just a big wow. My daughter, this was her 25th anniversary, so they got to build a float, and they had a party last night, and I find that, again, part of our school spirit, part of our love of community, and I'm proud to say that I'm from Chandler, Oklahoma.
If you or someone you know is interested in helping the school or willing to take on this project yourself, please get in touch with us or Kim. And we've seen this kind of transformation before. Just look at the Paige Woods' story in Oklahoma City. It was originally built as the Douglas High School, and now it's given new life as a beautifully restored apartment complex. And you can watch exactly how they were able to pull that off right here.